because when if you got oil on a test, you're running wet caps, you're screwing and unscrewing wet caps, you're catching fluid, you're keeping an eye on the roughnecks, making sure they don't do something stupid, and yeah, you can get pretty overwhelming, especially if it's a test where there's different kinds of fluid. Now, if it's straight oil, no problem. You know, it's easy. If it's straight water, no problem. But when you start having mixtures of mud and oil and water, and then it starts to change through the recovery, you know, it's a little overwhelming for one person, and it's always helpful to have somebody, you know, in the doghouse kind of writing some things down and helping you number your tubes and that sort of thing.
On your initial flow time, say, you know, 3 to 5 minutes is best. What if it's a mature field that, you know, it's like just up on the uplift or something like that? Would having a longer open beginning, would that really deter, I guess, or, you know?
I don't think it would really accomplish anything. I mean, if it's a mature field and you're assuming that you're going to have depleted pressures, you're probably going to see both of your pressures match. I mean, they're going to be low, but like one of those slides I showed here a while back, they're going to, you know, fairly well match.
So you recommend that 3 to 5 minutes in a new kind of discovery type field, you get real pressures out of it right away?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of an instance where running the longer initial flow is going to gain you much of anything. I can't really see a case to ever really do that.
Doesn't the problem become you don't have enough time to allow your initial shut-in to build up and recover from that? If you have a long open on the first open, your initial shut-in probably is going to struggle to build up.
Yeah, a lot of times it will. Yeah, a lot of times it will. I mean, not always. I mean, there are instances where I've seen people run a longer first flow and the shut-ins they both match perfectly, and you know, I mean, it's not every time do you just, you know, make the world stop turning because you're running a 30-minute initial flow, but on the other hand, when it's a crucial test and you have run that long flow, then you've kind of screwed the pooch. You know, you've already done this, and maybe you should have done that. You know, so that's the point I'm trying to make.
Depends on what kind of question you're trying to answer too.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who was here yesterday knows that our electric logs are not going to tell you to go to water all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But carbon, and most of the time when you're running a test, you just want to know what color is fluid.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Pressure is not going to make that much difference. If it's a gas area, you're trying to figure out how much gas you got, how long that's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, another thing that I wasn't able to bring any, well, I could have brought some pictures, but they really aren't really all that definitive. But I guess one thing I wanted to kind of explain about is some of the other functions of other parts of the tools. You know, there's tools that are standard, like a standard tool is four pieces: shut-in, hydraulic, packer, and anchor, and recorders. That's a standard test. And then you get into jars and safety joint and sample chamber. Let me touch on some of the functions of those particular tools. I'll start with the safety joint, and the safety joint in tool string is right above the packers. And the safety joint is just simply it's a tool that's about this long, and it's got some real coarse threads. And the purpose of the safety joint is to be the loosest part of the tool. So in the instance that you get on bottom and whatever happens and you can't pull loose, say a bunch of sand falls in or something like that, you can rotate the string to the left, and the safety joint should be the tool should break at the safety joint, and so that way at least you can get some of your tool out of the hole, and you can also go back in and screw back into that safety joint. So it's just a, you know, we've in all the history of Trilobite, I think we've backed out of one safety joint, but it worked just like it was supposed to, and in this particular instance we recovered, I don't remember, a whole bunch of salt water and then a bunch of sand in the bottom of the recovery, and they already had a commercial well in a shallower zone, and after looking at that scenario there, they just they just walked away and left it there and paid me for my tools. They didn't think there was any way they'd ever going to be able to get it washed out, and it was water, and it was the bottom of the hole, and it wasn't worth the trouble. The jars, they're hydraulic jars, and they go in the string up above the safety joint, and they've got a piston and hydraulic oil, and they're metered in such a way that they will actually hold tension, and then after so much amount of time, they will jar and jar you loose, and it's always, you know, if you ever had your car stuck in the ditch and somebody's trying to pull you out, and if they pull up a strain on it and can't get you loose, well, the next thing everybody always does is backs up and gets a little slack, and then rams into it, and hopefully that'll, you know, get you unstuck. Well, that's the same principle as what we're doing with the jars in the hole, and we've had several instances where we've sometimes jarred on a tool for an hour or two, and been able to finally get it out, and everybody, wipes the sweat off their forehead and breathes a sigh of relief. And then there's some times where they don't work, but jars are a good, there again it kind of goes with different territory. It's they're good insurance policies. They're not fail safe, any of them, but if say you're testing, for instance, people always worry about Cherokee Sands in northeast Ness County, and that's one of the most treacherous testing areas in Kansas with the unconsolidated sand, and in places like that, you want to, prevailing wisdom is run short times, and if you got a big blow, run short times and get that tool out of the hole, because you only have if that sand comes in and packs down around your anchor, there's a chance you might be done for. There's kind of a graveyard of tools up in that 1621 area over the years where people have rolled the dice and lost. So then the last tool I wanted to visit about, and it's called the sample chamber, and it's not run as commonly by Kansas operators as, say, Colorado or Texas or Oklahoma operators. Just a different way of thinking, I guess. But the sample chamber goes in the string between the hydraulic and the shut-in tool, and its purpose is just to catch the last amount of fluid or gas of any type that comes through the tool, and it comes out of the hole under pressure. And we at the surface, when the test is run, we hook a little valve and a pressure gauge and a meter up, and we try to meter out the gas. Then we have a bottle where we catch the fluid, and if you have a test where mostly it's mud, the sample chamber would catch some oil if it's there, clean oil or maybe clean water, where you could get an RW to see exactly how salty your water is, what your RW is for your logs, or say you had a little gas test, never got gas to surface, but you might have 500 pounds of pressure in that sample chamber, and you could hook a gas bottle up and catch a gas sample, and that'd be the only chance in the test to ever actually catch a gas sample, to go see what get it analyzed and see what your BTUs are of your gas. So, question?
How does the test interval impact your test?
Good question. The longer interval that you test, especially if you're testing more than one zone, you're compromising your test in a way, but you're also but you can also condemn more zones at once. It's kind of if some of these zones in Kansas where you have 14 different zones, if you run 14 tests, you're gonna, at the end of the well, you're gonna have a pretty good sized bill for rig time and testing and mud and geologists and but on the other hand, if you try to test and once we get into these case histories, I'm going to show you what happens sometimes when you test several zones together. But if you test several zones together, you might have pressure come from this zone, and then you might have recovery come from this zone, or you might have on the shut-in pressure, you might have like a depleted zone, and then you might have a second zone or second porosity rise up out of that depleted zone, and you have no way of knowing what come from where.